Extended cruising belongs to a small but dedicated group of horizon seekers who shun the old and safe for the distant and beyond.
On September 3rd, 1985, Leslie Sike and his wife Carol Ann, Gay Curry and David Farr became the first to sail a yacht across Hudson Bay. Throughout their passage, mostly in sub-zero temperatures, they faced life-threatening gales, snow and sleet, while dodging a minefield of icebergs. It's no wonder they received the prestigious Coastal Award from Cruising World magazine for outstanding seamanship.
The horizon, when there's icebergs out there, looks like Miami Beach buildings.
Yeah.
They look like apartment high-rise buildings, you know, and you'd expect to see thousands and hundreds of thousands of people there when you get there. You know, that's what it looks like. Yet it's called the ice blink, almost as if the iceberg may float in air.
Their 108-day voyage began May 18, 1985, when they set sail from Toronto on board Aqua Star, a 41-foot custom-built cutter. Their passage took them up the St. Lawrence to the Strait of Belle Isle, through the fog and ice off the coast of Labrador, across Ungava Bay, where they were nearly crushed and icebound, and finally through the hazards of Hudson Bay to Churchill, Manitoba. A total of 3,600 nautical miles.
All the harbors in the world are full of dreamers, each with different goals and ideas. For those like the Sykes who put their dreams into practice, it takes a lot of hard work. But there's no greater feeling of pride and accomplishment than successfully completing a passage and bringing the ship home safely. It's been said that yacht cruising is the ultimate way to get back to first principles of self-determination and independence, as Leslie explains.
On an expedition like this, you have to be very, very independent, because you're going to be at places that are so remote that you can get help even through the radio.
Subarctic waters posed many navigational challenges. Leslie relied heavily on sat-nav because the sky was rarely clear enough to use a sextant. And with the magnetic North Pole so close, the compass was virtually useless at times. Pack ice increased their difficulties. In fact, at one point, they were in danger of being engulfed and crushed by it.
Early the next morning, it was about 5 o'clock or so, I heard a sickening, crunching sound the outside of Aqua Star. First I thought we had some of the Eskimo hunters visiting us again, because they have the habit of ramming your boat to bring their boat to a halt. This is how they stop their boats, and then they come to visit you. But when I stuck my head out, I almost died of horror to see that the whole anchorage is filled up with ice, pack ice. So we took several different leads in the ice. Leads are like streets, where there's little gaps in the ice where there's clear water, or loose ice, I should say. And so we would go for a lead, and you'd go approximately 6 or 7 miles, and you find yourself in a bay, or the lead is blocked by an iceberg. So you have no choice but to turn around and go back. But before you get back where you came from, the lead had closed in again. So what happened to us is on the third day we found ourselves in a hole that was no more than about 200 feet in diameter, and it too was closing in slowly. So, but these are the times when we became very religious. We made a lot of promises in that 3 days. But on the third day, Carol and I remember took a trip up the mast to the crow's nest with binoculars.
I didn't quite make the crow's nest.
And she screamed that there is a lead that looks good. So after examining it, it looked good, and we took it, and it worked. And about 22 miles, we were into the open Atlantic again. We were on the other side of the ice pack.
The worst storm I've ever been in has been the storm on Hudson Bay, which lasted for about 5 days, but it seemed at the time like 5 years. It was a continuous barrage of the elements: snow, rain, sleet, hail, and 20-foot waves. That the Aqua Star's bow was just plunging into the waves and then rising up, and the waves would crash as far back as the cockpit. And this, you can imagine, it's a 50-foot boat. That's a long way for a wave to go. We were drenched. We were actually, this gear here kept us fairly dry, but it does get inside you. And below, for comrades below, it was, to quote the captain, it was like being inside a sports car inside of a cement mixer. It was you couldn't stay on your bunk because of the plunging. It sounded like the boat was breaking up. In fact, she wasn't, but that's the impact of Aqua Star at 40,000 pounds crashing into waves. So in such a case, we tried sailing with a storm jib only, which is like a little handkerchief out the front to catch it, the least amount of wind, but to move you forward. It was impossible. Tried using auxiliary engine power, the Volvo Penta, at 2,200 RPMs. We actually went backwards. So in the end, Leslie and I came up, got soaked in the process, but hooked on the storm jib and set it one way. And we have a trysail, which we hoisted, which is loose-footed, and winched it off in the other way, and that's called hoving to. In other words, you're stabilizing your boat under the roughest conditions so that you're not going to reach pitch pole. And at least that's the most comfortable you can be given the situation, given the conditions of the ocean and the wind.
Careful provisioning is an important part of any cruise. The Aqua Star crew spent years preparing for their adventure.
You go through all the manuals of all your electronic equipment, mechanical, electrical equipment, and you trying to figure out just what are the parts that you should take with you. And also you have to take it into consideration that how much you understand about the product. Can you work on a diesel engine? It's no use to take a very intricate parts for an engine if you can't install it.
Leslie estimates they carried more than 4,000 pounds of spare parts. And nothing is too intricate for him. After all, he helped design and build the boat.
Anything was ever to go wrong with this boat, even total darkness, I would know exactly just where the problem is.
But what about the problem of how to label, stow, and find 108 days worth of provisions, clothes, and safety equipment?
When Leslie saw how much we had stored in a garage to be put into Aqua Star's belly, he said, no way you guys are going to do that. But we surprised him.
They were able to supplement their diet with the bounty of the seas.
The Aqua Star voyage is an incentive to all of us who dream of distant shores, who like the quiet, the closeness to nature, and the feeling of achievement from successfully completing a passage. If you want a sailing adventure, go for it. The experience will change your life, as it did for Gay, David, Leslie, and Carol Ann.
Somehow it all was a dream. And it's going to take a long time, I think, probably even now for us. It's slowly sinking in, and it's going to take even longer yet for us all, and I know myself, to go over and over in my head and go through my diary and go through all this several times to really realize, Jesus, Jess, we did this.
These guys are very near and dear to me and always will be. And I think this probably, I'll never forget this trip. And all the little episodes we had. And
we all had our differences because we're all 4 different personalities to begin with. Yeah.
Well, and you see, my favorite expression is that for the 4 of us to live in a boat as small as this the skin-tight intimacy of living on a board like this, you know. This is very difficult. A lot of expeditions,
It's
a lot of
almost-
projects will fall apart because of the indifferences, you know, where people can't get along.